Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's episode arrives on the 10th anniversary of the podcast. So before we get into it, I just want to give everyone a shout out for listening, subscribing, rating, reviewing, and backing the show on Patreon. I have no idea how the hell I'm still doing this. It is literally trying to kill me, but here I am. But you all are the best. But let's get to the show itself. This week's guests are the co-writers of comics like the Eisner Award-nominated Kill Your Darlings at Image Comics, the upcoming Bring on the Bad Guys Green Goblin #1 at Marvel, Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone at IDW, and Blink and You'll Miss It at Boom Studios, as well as a book of unknown name at Distillery with their old pal Bob Quinn, and men about town when it comes to the podcasting and Substack space. It's Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan. Thanks for coming on.
Dude, I mean, it's crazy that we're here for your anniversary show. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes. David has just dropped the bomb on us literally moments before we hit go. We are the 10th anniversary. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. What an honor. And it's funny, too, because we've been trying to make this happen for so long. So it's awesome that it landed this way. It's fortuitous.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for the right moment, and it was the 10th anniversary. I actually had it on my calendar of like, all right, Griffin and Ethan, 10th anniversary. This is what's up. I had to get an Alaskan on.
Wow.
Kind of Alaskan.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, a former Alaskan. Yeah.
You know, it is funny. I've listened to some of your podcasts, as I told you before we started recording. I said I listen to some Supple Boys. I do listen to Ideas Don't Bleed every once in a while, despite the fact that Matthew Rosenberg is everyone's greatest enemy.
It's true.
Of course, including his own. Yeah.
Is it jarring coming on the other side and hearing like formal intros and having to go through the process with people when you've done it so many times yourself?
A little bit. It's really nice. Like, it's kind of relaxing, honestly. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, I don't have to drive, like, hands off the wheel. Like, the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's great because it's a space that we're super familiar with. And so, yeah, like Ethan's saying, when someone else is in the driver's seat, it's like, this is awesome. We don't have to edit this either? Okay. Great.
That would be a great time for you to drop, like, no, you do have to edit this, please. That would.
And if that was the case, we'd be like, you know what? Sure, it's in the workflow. We got it. That's fine.
You don't get like hyper analytical about people's lines of questioning or anything like that? Because it's like, I think about it like this. My wife's an architect, and when she sees buildings, she sees everything I don't see. And you guys are podcasters, so you're probably just like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, we're talking about comics, and you're just talking about horse shit with podcasts?
I wouldn't say so. I think that pretty much everybody that we've done a show with has done a great job. The only thing I think about is the energy. Like, I'm always just like, do I need to throw in a little something? Like, do I like?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Ethan and I have podcasted enough to know pretty quickly when an episode is going well or not. And by well, I just mean, is this going to be fun to listen to?
Yeah.
So far,
this was pretty fun.
TBD.
This was pretty fun.
It's early.
I feel like we think about the sound quality too. When we hop on a show and other people sound like shit, Ethan and I are always just like,
I will say that is the one thing I never expected. Just to give you a little background, the very first episode I did was with Sean Gordon Murphy, and we were recording. I was in my apartment with my wife at the time, and I was on this table, and it was this room that was just basically one super room. I did not have a microphone. I did not have headphones. I was just speaking into my laptop.
Hell yeah.
While this was not actually true, although I don't know it wasn't true, have you ever seen those old printers that like would make the sound?
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. I swear to God, it sounded like Sean Murphy had one of those going for the entire episode. And so it's like,
gives it character, gives it texture.
You figure out things really fast when you don't know what you're doing, or you just stop podcasting.
Right. I mean, when we started when we were kids, like Griffin was recording a Skype call with me where I was like holding the Skype call on my phone up to my ear, just doing it that way. And it sounded like garbage. It sounded so bad, but we did it for 30 years. Was it 30 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And now here we are.
Man, you guys are a lot older than you look. That's very strange. I did want to give you guys kudos because a little birdie actually told me that you canceled a recording with another podcast to appear on the show. And that podcast recording was the show you co-host with Matthew Rosenberg in Ideas Don't Bleed. Great choice. Sometimes I think we all need to put Matt in his place. So good job by you guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, thankfully we had a good sub because it was going to be us, and then we swapped in Greg Rucka, and I think that's I think Greg is more than up to the challenge of filling in that vacuum.
Greg Rucka co-hosting, or is he guesting?
No, he was just the guest. We were going to be the guests.
Well, it was kind of a backdoor pilot situation. We're testing him out. It's kind of like when they bring on the guest judges for American Idol. Is this going to work out?
Right. That's the thing that not all of our guests know, is that every single appearance is an audition to come on the show permanently.
Who Wants to Replace Griffin and Sheridan is the name of the reality
Specifically,
show?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And they run them all by me.
Griffin's looking for the way out.
Yeah, and I go, this is not the one. Greg made a compelling case today, for sure.
He did.
I don't know what a podcast hosted by Greg Rucka would sound like, but I'm now really intrigued. I might have to listen just to find out.
He's great. He's got the energy.
All right. Well, before we get into your work, I do want to talk about your background. I was very tempted to just ask why comics to start and just to fuck with Matt, but I decided not to do that. I don't want to make this a thing. You guys are younger than me. You're youths. You were born in the late 90s, I believe.
It's true.
I do think it's interesting because when I was a kid, there was this environment where basically everything it felt to some degree like it was pushing you towards reading comics. There was animated series, and there was trading cards, and there was X-Men arcade games. You had comic movies, you had things like that, but they felt more full replacements. That was, you were starting to get into cinematic universes and stuff. We didn't have that in my day. It is interesting to me what it's like for somebody that's coming into comics after kind of their heyday as something for youths. What was it about comics that hooked you? And did you start with single issues or collections? We'll start with you, Griffin.
Oh, man. Well, I think because of the timing of it, and by it, I mean our birth, Ethan and I's collective birth.
That's your secret, is you guys are actually fraternal twins?
Right.
Yeah. And Ryan Stegman is our mother. We were still pushed towards comics by, I think, a lot of the same things as the generation before us, because we're just right on the cusp, really, where I was still I gotta find out more about this Spider-Man guy because I've seen the cartoon and I understand there are books similar to this, and then just going and speaking to whatever adults will listen to me saying, where does Spider-Man come from? And of course, it just takes one relative to be I don't know, let's go down to the basement and dig through some boxes, and oh shit, here's Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man issue, which sort of, just changed my life. And so they were in front of me so early that it's hard to, I feel know what sort of impact all of the other stuff, the cinematic universes and everything, might have had on it, because I was so into it to begin with at such a young age, 3 or 4. Right. And so that I think I went into my first shop when I was 6, which still would have predated any of the Marvel Studios movies and probably a good chunk of other ones. And so its heyday as something for the youth is interesting because working in a shop right now, you can feel that. It's hard for me because I work in a shop that's in the city, so it's not necessarily a place that many children run around at anyway. But yeah, I think just starting with a single issue and then occasionally going to a shop growing up until it got to the point where I could convince an adult to drive me down regularly and then start picking up single issues. I don't actually think I owned collection until that point. I would always go to Barnes & Noble or a library and just sit there and flip through the first omnibus of Ultimate Spider-Man and never actually buy it because I couldn't walk up to my mom and be like, can you please buy me this $130 hardcover collection of Ultimate Spider-Man? But I reread those first few issues. I mean, I don't even know how many times. So that would have been my first experience with a collected edition is that. And then No, single issues first and foremost. That's how we're all here. That's the industry. That's the name of the game, is single issues.
But it's like all about digging deeper, right? Like you obsess over every frame of Raimi Spider-Man 1, and at a certain point you've seen it all. But then like one of the video games is like, look at all these costumes. Did you know all these costumes come from the comics? And then you start like digging through the comics, and it's like, dude, there's so much more. There's so much more that I can, like, as a child, that I can obsess over and you know, create my like red string wall of all the continuity. And it's like there's that like great Donald Glover quote about like that anything, you know, nerdy, like what makes something nerdy is if it takes work to like. And like it's like, and like we're the kind of kids that wanted to put in the work to just find out everything, especially about Spider-Man. And so that was the gateway drug that I think just took us down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
You got handed a copy, like a trade paperback of Ultimate Spider-Man on a playground. That was your origin,
It's true.
right? Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, my buddy in kindergarten gave me Double Trouble. And like literally, like that was like somebody dealt me drugs, where it was just like giving me that altered the entire trajectory of my life. It altered like the way that I thought. It altered like how I saw myself, and I never gave it back to him. I'm so sorry, Ben. I held on to it. It's still at my parents' house to this day. Just beat to hell. But like, yeah, that was like where like not only the Spider-Man and comics obsession started, but it's where the writing obsession started. Like because I just like the words, the way Bendis characterized these people. Like I was like, huh, this is not like anything else I've ever encountered. So it just set me on fire.
I have like two wildly different directions that I could take this. I think it's interesting. It's like obviously there's like the fact that you both had formative experiences with Bendis. Ultimate Spider-Man, then ultimately worked for him on the Jinx World Substack. But then there's the other thing too, is that I was reading about the way that the two of you work together. And from what I understand, Griffin, you're more of like a structural visual person, and Ethan, you're more of a dialogue kind of character-centric person. And it's interesting how getting handed that copy of like Double Trouble, it was like almost like it imprinted on your brain and set you on a path to becoming the perfect partner for Griffin in some ways.
100%. It's we talk about how our lives feel very faded in a lot of ways, and you know that's not to say that we're like walking on sunshine or that everything is, you know, that we're charmed or anything, but like it does feel like the good stuff and the bad stuff always leads us to like things that feel very like the circumstances are just right, and that really has been the case like with our relationship to each other, where it's like all of our formative stuff led our brains to develop in this way that we're like when they meet they're like two halves of a whole. It's so interesting. It's like it's bizarre because like once we figured out how to write together, it was like, oh, we're like a well-oiled machine. We just know how to churn through this. We know how to like make stuff that feels good for both of us. And so I'm eternally grateful to the universe for that.
Yeah, Bendis, I think, highly influential for both of us, even though he's very well known for all of his dialogue and character work, of course. Which, not saying that Ethan is a copy and paste Bendis, but like he kind of like
you could say that.
But also, like, he's so Bendis's work was always so cinematic too,
right? Yeah,
and so there was, I think he was as influential on my side of it in a way that I feel like is the secret sauce, really, of Brian's work. I think is the flow of it all.
It was that like architects generation of those creators that like they brought this like filmic feel to the books, and it felt so much more real than ever, in a way that when we were kids we heard so much complaint about. We heard so much complaint about decompression and repetitive dialogue and all these things, but like those were lessons that we took of like, oh, this is how like the medium can evolve, and now we're trying to put our own spin on that, which is just like bizarre. And I feel extremely lucky that we get to try to iterate on anything that those great creators have done.
Not to make this the Bendis compliment hour, but I mean, Griffin, what you're talking about, one of the things I think is interesting and kind of underrated about him is like he is one of the best at working with artists of a wide variety. There's not a lot of artists that are like he can make the best out of a Stuart Immonen. He can make the best out of Olivier Coipel. He can make the best out of Mike Deodato. You put him with anybody, and all of a sudden It just
Mhm.
adds up. And like you were saying, it's like maybe people think about the dialogue side first, but the stuff that's your strengths are also strengths of Bendis. You guys are kind of like puzzle pieces that fit together, and the picture is Brian Michael Bendis's face.
I mean,
That's an oversimplification of your skills, but you know what I'm saying.
If there's any truth to that, then there's no higher honor. We absolutely love Brian, and like getting to work for him was like just like another one of the things that's happened to us where it's just like, what are our lives? This is ridiculous. And he's just as wonderful as you would hope he would be too, after adoring his work for your whole life.
I made it seem like there's this wild generational gap between us. I'm a millennial. You guys are, I think, Gen Z. I don't know. I have no idea how generations work.
I guess, yeah.
And I think it's funny because like you talk to anybody that was basically born after Marvel Comics existed, and like the story is always the same. You get a random thing and it gets in your brain, and there's always something in the ether about these things. And then next thing you know, you're doing the Donald Glover thing where you're doing way too much research. You're like studying, whether it's studying like cards or like literally Wikipedia to like understand how Cable is related to Strife and Jean Grey.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you become like a forensic scientist about trying to figure out how the hell this stuff works. And like that kind of seeps into your brain. But I do want to bring up the storytelling side of it because I read comics. And you know what I never did? I never made comics. Griffin, I know you went to film school. Do you feel like you always wanted to tell stories? It's just your path took you in a different direction than you originally imagined?
Totally. Storytelling has been just sort of something that just like comes out of me. And Ethan, I know, is the same. It's to sort of quote Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man No Way Home. It's just I just do it. It's like breathing. It just kind of happens. So yeah, the film school route I think was already just like, okay, I'm moving into a visual medium. And comics, funny enough, even though like the film industry is clearly so much bigger and harder to break into, it was the one that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for that. Because for some reason, comics, and I think a lot of creators talk about this, it's just like a thing that you don't think you can do for some reason. You don't see the doorway until someone is suddenly just like, no, it's like right over there. And if you just like work hard enough, you probably go in there. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it was like a no-brainer pivot of all my time and energy and resources, because it's a medium that is so like at the bedrock for my love of storytelling, and allows me to do all of the things that I like about film while also utilizing things that I love about poetry and prose, and also is collaborative in the same way, but on a much more intimate level. So it's like the best of both worlds, where I get to hang out with other really creatively minded and super talented people like Ethan, and like all the artists and editors that we get to work with. And yeah, it feels even more like folks sitting down and just like having a chat and brainstorming and just having fun making stuff. And it's kind of been crazy to switch gears like that, but also I get to do all of the parts of filmmaking that I liked doing over in comics, where like I was focused on wanting to be a director and wanting to be an editor, and I get to do both of those things pretty easily in comics, of like deciding the pace of something or the tone of something. And then Ethan and I are just so like in sync on so much of the story, the tone, the direction of the whole thing. It just is such a joy to come up with all these images and stuff, and then say, Ethan, what are the characters dealing with here? It's great.
I mean, I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to school.
Slam dunk, sit down.
I was raised by wolves, and no, I dropped out of college, and I had written, in high school a lot. I had written plays a lot and stuff, and like I was never like I obviously enjoy visual storytelling, and I have so much love and admiration for that side of things and everything, but I have always been like a very verbal thinker, and dialogue was always my obsession. And so like things like plays and mediums and prose as well was something that like I was really invested in for a really long time. And so like that was a path I had been on for a long time of like thinking that I wanted to work in television and going down that sort of road. And so like, as we were saying, like these paths that we went down, I think helped us complement each other really well. Cause Griffin became very like, director brained in a way that allows him to like collaborate with artists to just like such an insane degree, where like Griffin has such a distinct vision of how scenes can be executed. And I feel like I just live with these characters in my head all the time, where I'm just like always running these conversations and like thinking about exchanges and moments. And so when we put that stuff together, it's just like, I just find it like magical. And I think that it's like, it feels really cool because it feels like we have all of our bases covered when we write something. Like it's like we sort of come from different directions, but we always meet at the exact point in the middle that we're hoping to. And it's like, and then we go like, oh, you took care of that? Oh, I took care of that. What do you think? And then we're like, yeah, it's pretty fucking, that's cool. And then like, it's great. It's become a very joyful experience.
I mean, I think that's one of the advantages of your very first project was, I just want to really quickly get this out of the way. It's like psychotic that your first project that you ever wrote was Eisner nominated and published by Image. I mean, like that's rare. I mean, psychotic in a complimentary way. As the kids would do, there's a parentheses with complimentary in between there.
Yes.
But it is also advantageous that you got to work with like Bob Quinn, who done a lot of comic work and who's pretty well versed in like the right way to do things. I'm not saying that like Bob was like, guys, you can't do this all the time or something like that, but I imagine it was helpful having an experienced collaborator when you're doing this the first time. And John J. Hill's like done a shitload of stuff.
Yeah, everything about Kill Your Darlings was just like one fortunate thing for us after another. I mean, like we I said earlier that we don't, not like we don't live a charmed life, but there have been many instances where it's like, whoa, thanks universe. And Kill Your Darlings was a series of those where it was just like we did an extensive artist hunt. Like we put in a lot of time and work and a lot of meetings into that and everything. But the fact that we met someone like Bob, who is not only a veteran artist, but like so kind and cool and ready to create something with other people, and was so like willing to accept us even though we were fresh faced, and was willing to like look at our one sheet and like see what it could be and what he could do with it, and like that he was in just the right point of his career to want to experiment with something like that. And like, so that was all just like extremely fortunate. Like Bob, you talk about like getting your big break or your lucky break or whatever. Bob is our lucky break, like for sure. Like he really took us over the line. But of course, like we worked for many years for creators like Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman and these like great creators who were willing to sort of take us under their wing and show us how this stuff is done and tell us what it's like to pitch to an editor and what it's like to shop your stuff around. And so it's like, it's always that mixture of like being really lucky, but also being ready to do the work and ready that like when somebody, hands you the baton, you're going to take it and you're going to like run for your life. And we've had many of all of those things.
I think Bob's confidence and excitement when we first started working was, I think, really what made the ability to actually like write the book with any sort of confidence like possible. When Bob came in and was like, this is cool, and like you're saying, David, he was so seasoned, and same with John coming in and like saying, no, we have faith in this. Us folks who have been around in the industry for a while, we're excited about this.
We'll put our names on it with you.
We'll put our names on it. Yeah, we'll put our time and energy into it.
And it's Bob's first Image thing. Like it's the first time him doing something like that. Yeah.
That gave us the confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that kind of made it feel real in a way.
Yeah,
totally.
Big time. And like you said, it gave us the confidence because we knew that we could put something in a script that like we were nervous about or just, excited about, but like we were untested. But we knew that if we put it in there, we're like, well, at least we know like Bob and John are going to make it look sick.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Love sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and action? Then 2000 AD is the greatest comic you're not reading. 2000 AD has a whole universe of characters from Judge Dredd and Strontium Dog through to Rogue Trooper, Zenith, Shakara, and many more. In every weekly issue, you get 5 action-packed stories from incredible creators including Garth Ennis, Rob Williams, Alex DeCampi, and Dan Abnett. Get a print subscription and it'll arrive at your door every week, and your first issue is free. Or subscribe digitally, get free back issues, and download DRM free copies of each issue for just $9 a month. That's 128 pages of incredible comics every month for less than $10. And all subscribers get amazing offers like money off vouchers and exclusive products. Head to 2000AD.com and click on subscribe now, or download the 2000AD app and start reading today. And now, back to the show. I have to say, just to take a quick Bob Quinn aside.
Yes.
I was delayed in reading Kill Your Darlings. I've read it, and it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The thing that I was surprised by in the book the most has nothing to do with you guys. I apologize.
It's okay.
I didn't realize how much of a chameleon Bob was.
Yeah.
Because I've read a lot of his stuff before, and I kind of thought I had an idea of who Bob was as an artist. And
Big time.
Kill Your Darlings is not who I had in my head, which I found to be really fascinating.
100%.
It's the colors. Bob cannot color his own work usually because of the timetable that stuff at Marvel has to move, right? And so this was one of the first instances where he could color himself for an extended period of time. And I think Bob himself, would say this too, is that his line work is very simple, but then he's picturing all of this depth in the colors. And it really is like a whole different thing getting pencils and inks from Bob and then getting colors. It just like transforms the piece because he's just doing so much of the realization at that stage, and it's a stage that he doesn't typically get to do for himself. And so that is, I think, genuinely a huge part of what makes Kill Your Darlings, I think, his strongest work to date, is the fact that there is so much of him on the page. And not that the colorists that they're pairing him with at Marvel are not talented folks, because of course they are. X Factor was a really great book. Mark Russell crushed it. Bob crushed it. All the colorist letters crushed that book. But when it's unfiltered, 100% Bob Quinn, it's just a whole different ballgame. He's insane.
Yeah, and he's doing so much of the storytelling just through mood, right? Like we cut so much of the words off of the page just because it was just like, I mean, just look at it. It's all there. Like through the lighting, through the colors, through the atmosphere, like let alone the character acting that he's capable of. Yeah, he's just doing storytelling on so many different levels. So he's a genius, and we're idiots, and he made us look really good.
That's really where I was going with this. So thank you for taking us there, Ethan. But just a couple more questions about your background before we get into like current stuff. But I'm sure you've answered this a million times. I do find it fascinating. Near as I can tell, I mean, you have not live near each other ever, and I'm sure the answer to some degree is the internet, but how did you first become like friends, collaborators, inseparable duo, fraternal twins? Like, when did that happen, and how did that happen?
Should I do it?
Go ahead, Griffin,
run with it.
Okay,
but don't fuck this up.
Yeah, seriously, like,
I'm gonna step in if you get anything wrong.
Okay,
he knows the answer.
Okay, Ethan and I are born on opposite ends of the
we're taking
country.
it all the way back.
The day was March 12th.
But we both quickly become obsessed with Spider-Man. You've maybe heard of him.
Yeah.
The 90s show, Sam Raimi's 2002 feature film, The Neversoft Game.
You would say that you're taking us back on a Spider-Man rewind, perhaps?
I don't know what that means. Is that in reference to something?
We're rewinding through the events of it in chronological order, which had not been done at that point.
Let's go.
We're big Spider-Man fans. We even grew up listening to podcasts at I feel like an age that just like nobody else was listening to podcasts. We were listening to podcasts when we were like 10, which was also before like just like explosion
through
of that
iTunes,
medium, right?
On my computer.
iTunes. Yes. Got to go plug in your iPod to download the new episodes of a couple of shows that we liked. There was a show called Amazing Spider-Man Classics that Ethan and I both listened to. And Ethan had even written into, so at one point I would have heard a letter written by Ethan and just like heard it and been like, oh, that's cool. That's like another kid who...
I was 12 years old at the time, yeah.
So unknowingly, like hearing words from my future best friend and collaborator. And then because of that podcast, I was like, well, there are no Spider-Man podcasts with perspectives from the youth. David, you brought it up earlier.
At the time, we were the youth. Now we just look youthful, but inside we're, decaying. Yeah, yes.
And so I started a Spider-Man podcast when I was like 13. And that was right when Superior Spider-Man started. And of course, Ryan Stegman is on the rotating list of artists for that book. That book, very formative. Dan Slott's run on Spider-Man, very formative for us, period. Good. But I had started that show, and because the whole selling point was it's a podcast by teenagers, for teenagers, Ethan wrote into us and was like, I'm also a teenager and love Spider-Man and what?
Yeah, I'd heard about it in the community. Yeah, I was like, because I didn't have any other kids, like friends at the time that I could talk to about comics, like at all. Like I was always trying to force my friends to read comics. And so finding out there were other kids that were this obsessed, I was like, fucking let me on the show. Let me on the show. I threatened him.
He threatened me. He buttered me up, said I've listened to every episode. Later found out he hadn't listened to a single one because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, it wasn't true. Wasn't true.
And so then we started having him on. And through the course of the show, also interviewed Ryan Stegman as children. And that's how I made that connection. And we kept podcasting for a little bit. And then it just stopped because we got to high school and started doing more social things. We both had extracurriculars. It was hard to keep up. But Ethan and I just stayed friends through the whole thing because everyone else that I knew who read comics eventually kind of, stopped. But Ethan and I were both each other's like touch point of like, did you fucking read ASM? Oh shit. Oh, Dan's wrapping up on ASM. Oh shit, dude. We were like the only people we had to talk to. And then of course, come to find, we have a lot in common and we are good friends, period. And then shit, dude, we just kept going. Yeah, started maybe another podcast. It's fuzzy in my memory if we did have another Spider-Man related podcast or not.
I found Spider-Man Rewind, Comic Book Rewind, Supple Boys, and Ideas Don't Bleed, but it sounds like that one preceded it, so that's at least 5.
We did a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
we did a lot of there was like a period there where we were like figuring out, because we were like, we have to do stuff together. Like we are on the phone constantly. We have to do stuff together. So we were constantly trying to launch podcasts and stuff, and then would do like a couple episodes and then fall off, and ended up doing more Spider-Man shit because that was the stuff we could talk about endlessly, and like some of it started to pick up traction for a little bit. Like some of it we were like, oh, there's listeners. There's like little fan memes and stuff. Like, yeah.
I know people mostly mean this for like drugs and alcohol, but I do think it's important to like experiment when you're younger, because then you actually find the things that you want to do. And like, I think that's great. So yeah.
And that was how we like first started like writing together too. It was like doing podcasts. Like we started doing little like scripted audio drama segments on our podcast that were like things that we as characters were dealing with, and like little adventures we were going on. And like it was just funny because like we, over those years, we were going into darker and darker times. Like we started like approaching COVID and all of that stuff, and like that was just like this thing that was kind of like that would let pressure off the valve for us, as we could do these dumb little podcasts and maybe do a little skit and do some voices and and so that was like, it felt like there was something there where it was like, okay, this is a thing I always have fun doing no matter what. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's that thing of that we were saying earlier, the storytelling parts of those podcasts were never something we thought we were going to do, and then they just would end up happening. And so then we were like, this is pretty fun. We could do this.
The beginning of your episode with Sal from Comic Pop on Supple Boys kind of starts with something like that. And I remember it was funny. At first I was like, what the fuck am I listening to? And then I was just like, this is awesome. Like it feels like, I think everyone does the things they do for different reasons, but it really felt like you guys were just doing things because you wanted to, but also because they expressed yourselves in a really interesting way. And I think that's great. I'm sorry I'm taking this a complete aside. Did Ryan Stegman name you the Supple Boys?
He named us his supple young interns.
Okay, that's
which we then ran with to create branding, which we have now tried to escape.
It is funny because it seems like we very much are trying to escape that, but I just had to ask because it feels so Stegman. As much as a
Yes, it
thing can
does.
feel Stegman beyond being a Detroit Pistons fan, which is just sad and weird. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if
Agreed.
you're a Pistons fan, Griffin.
I write comic books. I don't have an interest, you could say.
There you go. There we go. That's artist territory. So you did podcasts.
Yeah.
Yes.
You worked for comic sketch art at conventions where you did
That's
like
true.
whatnot streams and things like that at conventions. You've
Right.
worked on Substacks.
Man, you did your research. God damn, you're a professional.
Yeah,
I love it.
The deep lore.
Yeah, the deep lore. Wait until we got some good stuff. You did. You worked on the Substacks for Donnie Cates and Ryan Stegman. Kids Love Chains. The Jinx World one for Bendis, and then obviously Matt Rosenberg's Ashcan Press.
Yeah.
I'm sure part of it is like these are cool opportunities that I presume paid you, money to do these things, and humans need money to live life. But it's funny because it creates this image where there's one of two things. One, you were either deliberately trying really hard to make a career in comics, or you were accidentally forced to make comics because you were so immersed in them. And I cannot decide which is which.
David, we're still trying to figure it out ourselves.
We're still trying to figure it out. Are we podcasters? Are we comic book writers? Are we both? No, it's like the little piece of connective lore there, I guess. Yeah, is that Ryan Stegman, because of that interview that was done on Griffin's childhood podcast, like he knew that we did podcasts, and so reached out and was like, "You still do podcasts? I want to do a podcast. Will you do it for free? Thanks."
Reached out to a guy that he was like, I know you as a child did podcasts 10 years ago.
Is that still going on? Like,
are you still 13, Griffin? I hope
right.
you've aged since then. Can I hire you for work?
Yeah.
Right, and but it was no money exchanged hands. It was like we're just doing this for fun. But like as soon as it started, and we were doing this podcast with Stegman, and then Donnie Cates came on, and then more creators were coming on. Like Griffin and I were just like kind of eyed each other, and we were like, wait a minute. Has this all been leading to us making comic books? Is that what this is? And like it felt like a path very quickly.
I remember too, there was like 2 months of us doing the show, Stegman and his amazing friends, and Ethan and I, like Ryan had talked about like, well, I'll pay you or whatever. We'll get you paid for this eventually. And which did happen eventually. But those first few months, we were just like, okay, how do we tell them we just want to make comic books? We don't care about getting paid. And then it was like 2 months into the show, Ethan and I were like texting back and forth, and it helped arrange a signing for Ryan when Absolute Carnage #1 came out. And so we went and did that, and we had dinner, and Ethan and I are texting like, okay, tonight I'm going to say it to him. I'm going to tell him, Ryan, don't worry about paying us. We just want to make comic books, and if you could give us some pointers and help us figure out how we can do that, like that's enough. And he was just like, yeah, I kind of thought that was already like part of it.
It was kind of obvious that was what you were aiming for. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. Well, yeah. And then I got in the car and was driving back from Ryan Stegman's house, and was like, Ethan, I think we might make comic books.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
it took a while, like, because we
ended
ended up going from that free, like, okay, we're just like editing a podcast, to like, yeah, it was like Donnie and Ryan expanded into an imprint. We worked for a couple other imprints, and so it was like doing the same kind of stuff, but on like a larger scale, and like doing some paid gigs for that stuff, and like that helped us stay alive long enough to work on a comic book. And like, but the comic book, I mean, I could never have guessed how long that would take, because that was like another 3 years of just trying to get that to. It was a very long pre-process for Killer Darlings.
I hope that Ryan at least gave you a deal on his variant covers he did for Kill Your Darlings. He did one for every issue, right?
He did.
He gave us his acquaintance rate.
Oh, acquaintance rate. Okay. That's twice as much as normal, right?
Right.
Yeah, he still has yet to acknowledge our paternal connection.
I thought it was maternal.
Maternal,
there you go.
sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, maternal connection.
He birthed us.
It is kind of fascinating looking at it, though, because it's like you knew you wanted to tell stories together. You just didn't know what form it would come in. And then you kind of accidentally have like the best free college you could possibly ask for comic creators.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it's not that you weren't forced into it, but you were like given it's like a slip and slide path all the way there. It was great.
Yeah, 100%. Rabbit hole that we just kept tumbling. Yeah, no, for real, because for people who don't know, those Substacks like involved publishing content and media about the making of comics, like being like, here's how it works, and like watch streams of us putting together characters and plots, and Ryan draws it all, and so it's like, yeah, we just spent hours and hours and hours like soaking in the process and like even getting to participate at points, and yeah, it really was a crash course.
And Brian's was like literally a school for it. So
Yes.
It really was. It was his textbook that he was putting together through that. Yeah. And so we're just learning from the best.
Truly.
So you have this slip and slide experience where you get roped into comics, and you're excited. You want to do it. How long after figuring out you wanted to make comics did Kill Your Darlings start coming together?
I think it was 3 years, right? Was it 3+, a little over 3, maybe? Something like that.
4 years, I think, total from like the moment of us telling Ryan we want to do this, which I think would have been 2019, to Kill Your Darlings #1 is on stands in September 2023.
And each one of those years, we're like, this is the year. This is going to be it. And
It was, yeah. Well, we would, I don't know if we've ever said this on a show, but Ethan and I will sometimes, and by sometimes I mean every single year, look at each other and go, Ethan, this year of the Supple Boys. And we did that for a few years, and every year it was like, okay, that one, fuck that one. That one was not it. That was not the year of the Supple Boys. We thought it was. It's actually this year. And eventually it was the year of the Supple Boys. So that was cool.
Yeah, I can say I'm happy to announce that while the year that Kill Your Darlings came out was the year of the Supple Boys, we're now in year of the Supple Boys 2, because we're like, okay, we're here. We're at Marvel. We're doing all this stuff. This is the sequel.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you need to amend it. Maybe it's not the year of the Supple Boys. Maybe it's a year of the Supple Boys.
The age of the Supple Boys.
The age of the Supple Boy. I like it.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
Age of Supple. Yes, I'm in.
2024 did seem like a pretty good one. I mean, you were nominated for an Eisner and you completed the series and everything like that. I do want to say, you're the second guest I've had on the show that lost during the same Eisner Awards. So, hey!
Oh,
I was nominated, lost. You guys were nominated, lost.
Let's go!
Dude, we were in unbelievable company. Like the people that we were walking around to at that Eisner's that also lost, we were just like, that's a hero of mine. That's a hero of mine. That's a hero of mine. Like I couldn't have been happier to lose. Yeah.
We were sitting at that table with Bob and his wife and some other great folks, including, hilariously enough, Tim Seeley, Tony Fleece. Of course, now we're working with Tim over on Godzilla.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just like sitting there and looking around, and Ethan and I just being like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Like, this is so stupid. This is
Mike
so
Mignola.
This is so... Everything about Kill Your Darlings was just like, it would be so touch and go for a while, and then suddenly it would pivot into like best case scenario, and we're like, what the fuck? Issue 1 going to a second print?
Yeah, the
What?
second print. It's like moment to moment comics feels like that, where it's like the best thing that's ever happened just happened, and then the next week you're like, I think it's over. like moment to moment, that's the experience.
It seems like there's like mystery and magic to it, where you're like in moments where you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Truly.
Yeah, exactly. Just matters how the tone. Yeah.
Part of it being how fast the industry moves, period, right? I don't know if there's another industry that moves as fast, even in just like print, right? Unless we're talking blogs, right? Or newspapers, magazines, right? They're in the mix. But like comics are out every week, every month. There's a new one.
It's a medium where you gotta hang on for dear life. Yeah.
And especially for you guys having your first book, like you probably felt like we cannot have like a 3-month break, or Eric Stevenson's going to break our legs or something like that.
Yeah.
You got to get that out.
Yeah. And we were receiving so much advice from people like Matthew Rosenberg, like who, like, as you said, everyone's enemy, who like was so clear to us about how to appeal to retailers, how to make sure those relationships are solid. And like, of course you don't want to have delays, because like, and then we started doing signings and stuff where we got to talk to retailers and hang out with them for a bit. And it's like, it becomes clear, like, yeah, what is good for the space and what's bad for the space. And so like when you're doing an image book, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that you're keeping everybody happy. You're like because like there's so much of it that falls to you when you don't have an editor. It was a lot of pressure for sure. Like when we like got our first sales numbers back, I literally like almost fainted. Like I like every part of it was so intense. Like it was a lot.
Okay, so we talked about how you work together. So you have that series, you have, Kill Your Darlings, you have Blink and You'll Miss It at Boom coming up, you have an unannounced series at Distillery that you're doing with Bob Quinn that are all original concepts.
Right.
I hate to be that guy that asks about idea generation, but the fascinating thing about the two of you is there's two of you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just the two of you brainstorming when you're coming up with that? Is it one of you come up with an idea and developing it together? How does that side of things work?
Well, I mean, we live in the Google suite. We have docs that have been going for years and years at this point, and so like we both throw stuff into our docs, and like usually like one of us has a nugget of something that we build into something much bigger. Like Kill Your Darlings, we've talked about in interviews, was like just a couple of images that had popped into my head while working my frontline job during COVID. Like it was the image of the hands coming out of the cave and the car crash from issue 5 and all that stuff, and me taking those images to Griffin and going like, what is this? Who are these characters? What's going on here? What do we think? And then just kind of bouncing it back and forth. But like what's really been cool is like as we've grown as creators together, like there's become this very organic process of building a concept together where like with the Distillery book, that was like a concept that had been sitting in one of our docs for a long time. And we were like, okay, we'll do that one. But then in the middle of scripting the first issue of it, it just like zagged really hard where we thought it would zig, like just really organically. And then we just kind of like, we're like, oh, this is just a different book than we thought it was. And it's like cooler than we thought it was. And like that kind of thing keeps happening. Like that's also happened with Blink and You'll Miss It, where it's like Blink and You'll Miss It started as one idea that was in our docs and then turned into another one, which then turned into another one. And now Blink and You'll Miss It is the 4th iteration. And then we flipped it over inside out and backwards. And like, it's like, we just keep talking. It's like just how we were always on the phone as kids, where it's just like, we just spend hours on the phone with one of these nuggets of an idea that one of us threw into a doc, and we talk it over and over and over until it builds into something much bigger and something that we're both like jazzed about. Like when we both start to go like, oh, I think we got something here. Like that's when we know that we've actually like excavated to the real idea.
Definitely. And I mean, honestly, Ethan, I think, is being humble. Credit where credit is due. Most of our like the seeds of the concepts are coming from Ethan's brain. And I think that comes out of, I was not much of like a writer before we started writing. Ethan was. And so Ethan coming to me with like, this is the idea. And then we just have the perfect sync of brainwaves. That makes it very easy for me to get in there and be like, okay, yes, I see that. And then this, and this. And then I'm like, okay, I think this is what it is. And then Ethan will be like, okay, yes. And then we keep talking, and then just like keeps
yes,
building out. And then,
yeah.
We'll outline. And this instance that he's talking about with the Distillery book, I think is something that Ethan and I are learning and working with a lot right now in the past year. We've been talking a lot about how Kill Your Darlings took several years to happen. All of the books that are about to come out in the next year came together in the past year.
Right.
Like they came together very, very quickly. There's been a lot of like trusting our instincts and trusting each other's instincts happening as we build these books. And so something like this pivot that happened in the Distillery book came out of, we outlined a whole version of the series, and we're in agreement about, this is what the book is about. These are the characters. And then just as I'm going and doing my thing, I'm just like, uh-oh, we're going in a different direction. Here we are. And then I come to Ethan and I'm like, what do you think of this? Just slightly to the left. And Ethan goes, yep, that's fucking cool. And then he's like, and I'll color it in.
Yeah, rarely ever do we veer off the path and it doesn't feel better. Like usually if there is like a detour, it's like, oh yeah, that's because there was something cooler over there. I think that's become a really important part of our collaboration, is like knowing when there's an off ramp and when that may lead to something a lot more exciting, and when we should just commit and just go like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's where we're going. It feels great. It's exhilarating.
I think one of the interesting things about that is, like, when I talk to creators, a lot of times, like, the hardest thing to figure out isn't like, they know that they can write, they know that they can come up with ideas, but it's also like trusting your instincts that you can go down those paths. And it seems like maybe because it took, a few years for it to truly be the year of the Supple Boys. Once you figured out Kill Your Darlings, it's like almost like you guys had figured out all of the indecision and the lack of trust in yourselves. And then once you kind of moved on to next projects, you could kind of pour all that in there, and you knew what to do then. You could trust yourselves.
It does feel that way, because we talked about having the crash course with other creators. Like, that prepared us. And then Kill Your Darlings was where we actually learned to write and to write together. Like, we both learned a lot about our own voices, and then what our voice is together, and then how to literally, like, physically, like, how do we script together? How do we find the stuff that we like the most together? Like, all of that was what we learned over the course of Kill Your Darlings. And like we always talk about, we can literally point to where it started to click, which is issue 3 of Kill Your Darlings. Like, that was where we like really figured it out. And like, and so by the end of Kill Your Darlings, yeah, like, we made a bunch of big decisions in that last issue, and it felt really good, and people were really happy with it for the most part. And so after that, it was like, okay, yeah, no, I think like we got to keep following what feels good in that way. And we've and like that's kind of part of the scary thing about like writing for, like for commercial art like this, is like you have to be extremely decisive. You have to continue to make calls and just go like, yep, that's it. That's what the book is. That's what this character's called. That's what they do. That's how the issue ends. Like, you just constantly are making those calls. And so like, yeah, thankfully we had a really great little playground to like learn how to do that in.
Well, it's tough because I totally agree. And there is all this like newfound, well, it's tough to say, confidence does feel like the right word in some sense, and yet there is always, I feel like, more on my part, maybe just because like I have to kick off the actual scripting process just because of the way that we work, and so I'll always wrap up my side of things without the final like coat of paint that is Ethan's dialogue. And so I'll wrap something up and I'm like, I don't fucking know, because it's just me. And then I get like, down on myself. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I think I fucking botched this. I don't know if I know how to do this. And then Ethan's like, no, you fucking crushed it. I've done my side. Now check it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, fuck yeah.
See, that's a crucial part, is that we're hype men for each other. Like, we get to look at what each other did and be like, yeah, dude, you killed it.
Yeah. If I didn't have Ethan, I feel like there'd be so much more doubt and probably second guessing happening. But there is all this happening with the indie books. But now moving into some of the licensed stuff, getting to write characters that we ourselves have grown up with, and that there is, something that everyone always talks about is, the pressure maybe that is associated with writing Spider-Man.
Right.
I heard of that guy.
Yeah. People have some expectations about that.
Yeah. Ourselves included, right? And so now, honestly, doing the license stuff has pretty much been like, at least for me, back to square one on like the confidence thing, where now it's like stepping into Godzilla and a few other things that we can't actually talk about yet, is just like, oh, this is super daunting.
It's so different, because you're not just going like, I created this character, so I'll tell you this feels right for this character to say. It's like, if you're writing a licensed book, like if you're writing like something with a bunch of Marvel characters in it, it's like, okay, people know how all these guys sound, and like people know what all these guys would do in every given situation. So like, you have to make sure that literally every piece you put into place is right, like quote unquote. And so not only does it have to feel right to you, but it's also got to run the checks of like continuity and voice and like all of these things that are like, it's just all of these extra layers of like just making sure that you're making the right calls. It's like, it's daunting, but it's also like, that is fun. Like, the more that you add and the more wrenches you throw into it, the more sort of like limitations and expectations, like it does get more anxiety inducing, but it's also like, it's just like cranking up the challenge. Like it also is, I'm saying writing a Marvel book is like the Dark Souls of writing a comic book. Like it's like okay, yeah, no, fuck, I got to learn learn how to parry, motherfucker.
Marvel, aka From Software.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of help from we've the editors that we're working with
Of course, yeah.
at the big two are
Fantastic.
wonderful. They're so awesome.
Is it Mark Panicia on Green Goblin #1?
Yes, Mark. I think it did like the whole line, but we worked more closely with Caitlin Linvet. I've actually never heard or spoken her last name out loud, so I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Caitlin and Nick Lowe of the Spidey offices, who we mostly worked with on those.
Nick's great.
They've been fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I do think it's interesting because you're going from kill your darlings, where you literally can kill your darlings if you so desire,
Right.
to, you're working on Bring on the Bad Guys, Green Goblin #1, which is coming out soon, which is a book that you're writing with, I think, framing device by Mark Guggenheim, from what I understand.
Yeah. Got a backup, yeah.
So if you go in there and you're just like, hey, what if we had Spider-Man get back together with Mary Jane? You can't,
which was our first pitch. Yeah.
This is an interest. I know it's Green Goblin, but
Right.
if you do that, that's a meeting. That's a no-go. You can't do that. So, or like, let's say you want to, we were joking earlier about Stiltman. If you're like, I want to use Stiltman, what if Stiltman's over in Daredevil doing something right now? All of a sudden, you can't use Stiltman. And it's interesting. And I've talked about this way too many times on the podcast, but I do think it's interesting that there's two different ways you can take that. One is that working on a licensed book like that is, in theory, harmful to creativity. But in some ways, I've always heard that people learn a lot from restrictions, and they find that it's actually fruitful for them creatively to have to work within that box and try to figure out your answers anyways. Is that the way you found out, Griffin?
Oh, totally. It's weird. There's a lot we can't say. The goblin thing, you would sort of presume, I think, that there would be so many roadblocks on what we can and can't do,
especially because it takes place in the past. It takes place in the Silver Age. Yeah.
Well, but that's it too. Is it could take place really whenever. They were really open to just hear what ideas we had, and even though we sent them in one direction at the very start, and then they helped sort of bob and weave and move us into the space that the issue actually sort of is in. But it was actually very very freeing, very open. They were down for a lot of ideas, which was really cool.
Yeah.
The other stuff that we're working on right now with them is kind of wide open. It's maybe an out of continuity thing, and so we have yet to really fully come up against those challenges, right? And so
we've been extremely fortunate, yeah,
which is cool because this is kind of best case scenario for us as writers with a lot of ideas for these characters. We're just we can maybe do that crazy idea that we might not be able to do,
right? But I will say too, the limitations that we have gotten, the Green Goblin book being part of the Bring on the Bad Guys event, meant that we did get information from editorial that was here's how this fits into the wider event, and here are the elements that have to be included. And even just that, even just being guided that much was it's the pinball hitting the different parts of the thing, guiding it toward I liked I'm a firm believer that limitations do breed creativity. And I think once they go this needs to be in this box roughly, I'm okay, fuck yeah, well then this is what it is. It is helpful in a lot of ways too. Yeah.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. This July, one of the greatest creator-owned comic series of all time begins a powerful new chapter. From Oni Press, return to the Eisner Award-nominated world of The Six Gun as creators Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt reunite for The Six Gun, Battle for the Six #1, an extra-sized comic event told across 3 prestige format issues. In the aftermath of the Civil War, a race to claim 6 objects of enormous occult power began, thrusting the fate of humanity into the hands of an ordinary young woman and a hard-nosed gunfighter. Together, they were our best hope to stop Armageddon. They prevailed, but at a terrible price. 3 decades later, at the dawn of the 20th century, the Six Gun is about to be reborn anew, as it has been countless times across the centuries. The Six Gun Battle for the Six #1, coming to comic shops everywhere on July 23rd. And now, back to the show. You mentioned you were working with, I believe it was Caitlin, and then you're working with Nick over at Marvel.
Yes.
You
Right.
have John Moyson on Blink and You Miss It.
Right.
You have Jake Williams, the immortal Jake Williams, great guy over at IDW on Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone.
The best.
That's a really big change from Kill Your Darlings, where it's like, you are the masters of your own destiny. You control what happens with this. You can do whatever you want. Do you think working with editors has helped you figure out some things as writers after going creator-owned to start?
Definitely. I mean, it's just more collaboration, right? Like it's like editors are, they work similarly to writers in a lot of ways. Like they're having to keep a lot of the same stuff in mind, but also stuff that is outside of that frame of reference. And so it's like you're just adding someone else to the team who is like, you hear stories about people having like antagonistic relationships with their editors and stuff, but it's like in our experience so far, they're just making sure everybody stays in the bounds. They're making sure that nobody's screwing up. They're making, and it's like it can be really comforting that it's like, oh, there's somebody, there's an adult in the room. There's somebody keeping everything on track, and it is cool too because that's a lot of feedback that you get. Like, we're talking about Griffin and I hyping each other up, and it's like with an Image book, like you'll hear back from people at Image now and then, but like a lot of it feels like throwing your book out into the void and like you're waiting to hear from readers. But like what's cool about having an editor is like you kind of immediately hear back of like yes, some stuff may not be working or may need to be adjusted, but then you also hear like love this or like excited to see this in the art or and it's like that's just more feedback that I think helps fuel the whole process.
Totally. Like we're talking about the pressures that come with writing some of these characters. And it is great to send a script with a bunch of Norman Osborn lore in it and to have the people in charge of the Norman Osborn lore go, this is awesome. This works great. And it's just like, oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, if they're happy, I'm happy.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought of this before, but you just introduced this thought, Ethan. You have your first comic, the first issue comes out. You're part of the internet. That's a thing that you guys do. What was that first day like for you when it dropped?
Well, we both did release day signings, and so I was at a comic shop in Phoenix, and I had my little table set up and got the books set out, and I was really, 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 really nervous that day, and I'm trying to sway people to come over to the table. I'm like, yes, you got your Silver Surfer, but what do you think of this? But the whole time my phone's sitting there, and I'm like waiting for people's reactions. And it's like it really made me feel a little nauseated, just because I had never not only had I not released something to an audience of that scale before, but never something that did legitimately feel that personal. And so it was like we had put pieces of ourselves out there to a lot of people, and we're just waiting. And so I remember checking my phone, checking the comic book roundup thing to see when reviews are coming in, and when the reviews started to drop, I was really over. I had a panic attack on the release day because I was just so freaked out, and the reactions were good, but that was just how much pressure it was. Where it was just this is a lot of people talking about us and our work in a way that has not happened before, and so it was really, really anxiety inducing. But thankfully, since then, it's never been that bad. But it was really strange.
It's the first time. And also it's I had Daniel Warren Johnson on the podcast not that long ago, and we were talking about the different projects he's done, and it's just it's easier for him to see reactions to Transformers because it's not it's not him. But if he does something Do a Powerbomb and somebody's this is hot garbage, as if somebody would say that about Do a Powerbomb, but still
right.
In that hypothetical scenario, it's it feels like condemnation of you, not just the project. And I don't know, I mean, what was it like for you, Griffin? Did you manage it pretty well?
Yeah, I mean, similar case. I had a really, really wonderful support system of friends and family, not just when the book launched, but all throughout the creation of it. So there was a lot of rejoicing and celebration going on because everybody in my life knew how important this was and how long this had sort of been coming and really how full circle it is. And so I was mostly focused on that. But also for me, the reactions from people are a big part of it. Part of actually, maybe I'm a little sicko for this, but I love any reactions I can get from the book. I love taking those in because that is the conversation. And that is part of what I love about doing commercial art and doing art publicly is the what did you think of it? What did you pull from it? Because at the end of the day, even my own reading or interpretation of our work is still just mine and it's cool, but it's also the one that I've lived with the longest. It's in my head. I know it inside and out. And so when somebody shows up with a fresh perspective, even if that entails them disliking it, that's a bummer because they spent their time and money on it, and I feel bad about that. But I love hearing when someone feels anything about the book because I just learn more about the book and about the industry and readers and I feel like ourselves too in the way that I react to that. So
and we crave attention if that's not clear.
We're just like egomaniacs.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean, I also think to some degree it's interesting because it's like the way that you engage as a creator is rooted in how you engaged as a fan in some ways. Because like you engaged on a hyper specific level when you were reading Amazing Spider-Man as kids. And so you want other people to kind of, I mean, if somebody came up with a podcast that was all about Kill Your Darlings, I'm guessing you guys would have been like weeping with joy because it's like,
yeah,
we had some friends who did that for the guys who did the Amazing Spider-Man Classics podcast that we were fans of as a kid. They made a podcast just for us in celebration where they went over the first issue of Kill Your Darlings, and it like to give us that experience like as a gift, and it was like it was just like one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for us. It was very surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything about it was surreal.
Yeah.
Do you want my live reaction?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
This is a very specific compliment, and I think that you'll appreciate it. I've read a lot of comics, and I think one of the things that I like the most about Kill Your Darlings is you two, well, all of you, surprised me multiple times in that book with turns and directions that I did not expect.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, that's one of the things that's is I think what you want as somebody who reads and watches and engages with stuff is you want something that goes in a direction that's like that you enjoy that you didn't see coming. And I think that you guys did a really good job of delivering that in a number of different ways to the point where like when I was getting into like the 7th issue, I was like flipping back to like the 1st and 2nd and 3rd issues in the beginning because I was like circling, I was figuring out exactly how everything fit together. I was like, I think I know how this fit, but I'm like, did they really do this so tight that it actually works like that? And so good job by you guys. You nailed it.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. That's really means a lot.
We set out to do something that was maybe slightly subversive, but mostly in that comics, there's never been more comics coming out at once than there is now. And guess what? Next year, it'll probably be like, there will be more comics coming. Like the market, and I don't even mean this in a negative way, really, but like it is more saturated than it used to be. And with so much stuff coming out, you want someone to have an experience with your book that doesn't feel like anything else. And so we were never working against the instincts of the whole thing to just like to be explicitly subversive for the sake of being subversive. So then you read it and go, well, I didn't expect that to happen. But in any place that we could find a moment that we thought could stand out or be memorable or to, zig, when we thought you would think we would zag, we were like, okay, well, yeah, let's move in that direction, because at the end of the day, with Kill Your Darlings specifically, we were like, let's just get a reaction out of people. Like, I want them to feel anything.
Plus, it came together over 3 years where like we could sit with it for a long time and get bored with certain things and decide, you know what, and let's just twist it. Let's keep twisting it. And I mean, one to both of us has ADHD, so we're like, all right, well, let's mix it up, man.
That's the range. The number of times we almost hit the big red button on it is actually insane. Even like down to the wire.
You mean to kill it completely?
No, to like just change the whole fucking thing. Where we wrote the whole thing twice before Bob even started, and both times like we went in slightly different directions, and then we basically rewrote it a third time as Bob was drawing it, because then it was like, okay, this is really the final version of it. Can we smash it with a hammer one more time? And the answer was yes. And then turns out it was the third hammer smash that we were like, oh, hell yeah. Now we're cooking.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this is actually true, but I remember hearing that original Pixar, like not current Pixar, would basically make their own movies twice for the purpose of kind of getting the first one, like, this one's not so good. Let's get that one out of the way. And then the second time, that's when you get it right. I love that you guys took the Pixar method and you're like, but what if one more?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, we had the time and like, it felt like, we were obsessive. We couldn't stop working on it. And it was also just like, with so much lead time, like it felt irresponsible to not just keep twisting away at it. And like, I think in some projects, like maybe you don't have to take it that far, but certainly with our first one, it was just like, it felt imperative to explore all avenues as much as we could, just to make sure that we were turning over every rock. And yeah, like we've talked about it on other podcasts and stuff, but it's like the villain of our book, the witch was going to be a background element that we only found late in the game of like, actually, let's ramp this up and let's almost have her be like a co-lead of the book and have the two of them collide in this really interesting way. And so like it really, like, that was the start of this organic thing that we're talking about, where like now all of our books feel like a discovery process. And that's really what keeps it exciting.
I just have a few more questions. I do want to ask about, like, so you had Hello Darkness #7. You had a story in that came out in January. You have Blink and You'll Miss It coming in August 6th, I think, from Boom. You have Book of Unknown Name, but with Bob Quinn at Distillery. You have Bring On the Bad Guys, Green Goblin #1 coming up at Marvel, but also Books of Unknown Name and unknown announcement date. And then
Correct.
at IDW, you have Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone. That
Yes.
is, and also Kill Your Darlings at Image. That's
Yes.
5 publishers that we know of, some of which are licensed work, some of which is original work, some of which is purely creator-owned work.
Plus a mobile game tie-in.
Who can forget the mobile game tie-in? Do you still feel like you're figuring yourselves out and what you really want as creators? Because you're early on. It seems like you're kind of playing the field and being like, oh, which one works best for me?
Yes, absolutely. Still trying to figure it all out. Every single project that we are fortunate enough to be working on right now, like we said earlier, is less than a year old. So the process of hopping into all of these books at once has actually been insane. To suddenly switch into, we're writing not just one book over the course of like 4 years, we're writing 5 books over the course of a year. And that has brought in a whole different sense of like, what do we like to do? How do we like to write? And this process we just got done talking about with Kill Your Darlings of like breaking it with a hammer is now happening much more real time as we're writing. And with all these different things, obviously there are some moments where I step back and go, are we writing the same book? Is Godzilla the same as Green Goblin?
We made 10
so
Kill Your
so
Darlings. Yeah.
But then also they're informing each other in a very interesting way that's not just like, okay, yeah, it's like the same narrative elements or whatever, but like coming over and doing something in Blink and being like, oh, I really like when we do this. I guess I'll bring that over to Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then like finding something in Godzilla that we really like to do and bringing that over to Green Goblin. Compression has been one thing that we're really, really discovering. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like the broad scale of our careers and everything, it's been an embarrassment of riches to be able to do all of this at once and to really settle into like, oh no, I can see the side of us that does the license stuff and the big 2 stuff developing. And then there's the other side of us that does the indie stuff. And both sides are informing each other. It's
definitely
really special. It's not like we're sitting here realizing, okay, well, we'll never write for the big 2 ever again because this sucked. That is super not happening. And in fact, it's just like, oh my God, if we get to do all of it at once, all the time for the rest of our lives, I think that would be pretty spectacular. We always talk about how Jason currently just like dude, he's got turtles. He's got
Jason Aaron.
Superman.
Yeah,
Jason Aaron.
I was briefly thinking of the Friday the 13th villain.
We're on a first name basis, it's
We've spoken to him on Ideas Don't Bleed, a comic book podcast brought to you by Matthew Rosenberg and Ashcan Press.
Wait, very quick aside. I do want to say your connections did result in probably the greatest collection of pull quotes for first-time creators. That
oh
the
my
world has ever
God!
seen.
Oh yes.
We don't have to get into that. Sorry to interrupt, Griffin.
No, another very lucky break. Yes.
Let's go. Like, we look at his career right now, and it kind of is like, yeah, let's aim for that, where you can just have your fingers in all the pies at once, whatever is the most creatively fulfilling.
Yeah, because like all jokes aside, I do feel like I'm aging like rapidly, and I feel like the world is really wearing away at me. But in like some ways, that's cool because I feel like my tastes are developing very rapidly, and like the more that we write, the more that I do feel like we discover the kinds of things we want to be writing, and that shifts over time. So there's like different eras. Like I was just texting somebody this morning that Kill Your Darlings, like I love it with all my heart, but like even like already I look at that and I'm like, there's some things I'd do differently, and that's really interesting because it's like that book is a time capsule of who we were during that period, and we expressed everything we were trying to express during that period, and that's all you can do with stuff like this. And now we're expressing what we've got now, and so that's like that is part of the magic of working in comics, is that you can write a Green Goblin and then you can go over and do a Blink and You'll Miss It, and you're just like working out these different parts of your brain. So it's like, oh, I'll do the part of me that loves like pacey action stuff over here, and then I'll do the part of me that loves sad, dreamlike, like bizarre, like what even is this over here? And if there are people that like both of those things, I know that those are like really my people, and so like that's the beauty of finding an audience. So comics like is an amazing place to get to express yourself, and it's like an amazing place to be a writer.
I mean, I think it's healthy to like look at your previous work. I know that sometimes people hear artists talk about how like they can't look at their previous work because all they can see is the mistakes, and I think there's like a sympathy to that. But the thing is like you do anything and you always invariably think, how could I have done this better? Right. And you're naturally going to see that. But I mean, you're going to keep growing. You're going to keep seeing things like that. And I think that that's a perfectly healthy thing. But to close, I want to talk about some bigger picture things. I do find it fascinating. You came in and you've had this slip and slide start, the excellent start to your career. It's been a very good thing, but you've also come in during it's hard to say this because the comic industry is weird as hell, but maybe the weirdest time in comic history.
Yeah,
because
it's strange.
There's a lot of change going on because of the pandemic, and then Diamond Comic Distributors has the bankruptcy looming over everything. I mean, Griffin, you probably have a very unique perspective as somebody who works in a comic shop at the time while you're also doing that. But how does it feel to get into comics at a time like this? Is that something that you two think of, or do you just work and not think about the environment you're operating within?
Mr. Retailer, what do you got?
Well, it's weird because Ethan and I only know this chaos.
Yeah.
We don't have we don't have a before. All we have are our superiors, our mentor figures looking at us and going, fucking A, everything is fucked. Not that they do that, but there is like a, wow, things are changing like crazy. And we're just like, and we just like having obviously an understanding and a knowledge of the industry before a lot of this change happened, can still look at it and go, oh yeah, there is like a lot going on. And at the same time, Ethan and I are just like, well, par for the course for our careers so far. And it's been stressful in a lot of ways, obviously, but also just kind of reinforcing the idea of, I don't know, let's just make some good comic books. Like it's brought us, I think, to we got so exhausted by it. I think so quickly, and I think coupling with just like the state of the world in general, right? Like all of it has been so exhausting to the point where we're just like, well, I kind of just want to make a really cool book, and I hope it comes out and people read it, and that's the beginning and end of it.
If you look back at literally any point in comics history too, it's like everyone is constantly on the verge of bankruptcy. Everything is constantly like in a state of upheaval. Like every period, every era of comics, there's obviously like exceptions, but like even when things are going good in comics, the table gets flipped. Like things are constantly all over the place. It's always been a very chaotic space, as is any entertainment space. And I think, yeah, like now working in comics is learning to live in that chaos, just like it is just living in the world right now. And that really does help with the work, because you've always got shit to talk about, man. Like there's always conflict, there's always upheaval, and like that's very helpful in a space where we always got to figure out how to make some people fight.
I mean, the comic industry has always been pretty cyclical. Like when I first got into comics, it was the boom time of like X-Men #1 and Spider-Man #1 and X-Force #1 leading into the foundation of Image and everything like that. And then it was like Marvel goes bankrupt and there's the distributor wars, which is like so dramatic. And then all of a sudden it's Marvel Knights and it's Ultimate and it's like all these awesome books that like lead to a resurgence. And there's ebbs and flows. I mean, the thing is like, I mean, it is kind of funny. When you were talking, Griffin, it kind of reminded me of that line from Bane in Dark Knight Rises, where you guys were like literally born in the darkness and like, and
molded by it.
It's all you know. So like, what are you supposed to do? All you can do is do your job and try to do it as best as you possibly can. But last question. We talked about this. You guys have always had a lot of hats. You've been podcasters. You've done comics adjacent jobs. You worked on the Substacks. Obviously, those have, come and gone to varying degrees. The Substack era is not completely as spicy as it once was. Those always, like, they seem like genuinely meaningful outlets for you creatively. Like those were things you did not because you were trying to become like the next big influencers or something like that. You did it because it meant something to you and it was a way to express yourselves creatively and as friends. Do you think as your comic careers develop that you're going to try to find a balance where you still have things for yourselves like that? Or do you think, I mean, you have like 5 projects at the same time. I know some of it's just math. Like you only have so many hours in a day.
Right.
What do you think the future looks like in that regard?
Oh my God. That's a good question.
Great question, daunting question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's something we've talked about a lot is like, do we keep podcasting? Do we keep whatever? And like the Ideas Don't Bleed is something that I would love to keep going forever just because it's like the format's great, Matt's great, the vibe is great. Like we've had so many great people on and so many people that want to come back for another one. And that will go indefinitely for sure. But in terms of like us doing like internet stuff and whatever, like we've talked about getting a new show going. That's the two of us. And we've talked like all of that. And like there are times when I'm like, let's do it. And Griffin's like, absolutely not. And there's times when Griffin's like, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't think I have the bandwidth for that. Like it just is like, it's just not happened like for one reason or another, but usually just because, there's too many wonderful comic books on the plate. I think we were born in this, as you said. And so like, I think as we get deeper into like working on these things that have more eyes on them and stuff, I think we'll probably continue to find outlets where we can just be silly online and stuff. Like I think there will be more of that stuff. But I do think that it has sort of evolved into I like writing the comics is the thing that has become the most fulfilling for us. Like if I may speak for both of us, and I will. I think this is the thing that I think I would be happy to die doing, and so like I'm sure we'll mess around and do Supple Boys 2 or whatever. But in general, it's like these books are everything that my heart wants to put out into the world right now, and I can see that being the case forever.
Exactly that last point for me, I think, is like at the time, all those things were kind of our main outlets, our only outlets for anything we wanted to say or do. And now that we have the books, those are kind of the only way that I want to contribute to the conversation in any like real sense outside of, I know I haven't been on Ideas Don't Bleed in some time.
I think it was 6 episodes according to the Remember intro.
At least. It's been a minute, but that's like, as long as it's in the comic space, like I'm happy to contribute, but also I don't know what more to say beyond what we're saying in the books, and so there is so much noise right now. There's so much congestion in online discourse in general, and so I think being as succinct as possible is the name of the game for Ethan and I currently. After God, we've talked on podcasts for so long, like there was so much of our voice in people's ears
at a time when we had so little to say. As well. Yeah.
And now it's like we wrote a book. The book says it all, and now we get like we said, now we get to like have more of a conversation with people through their responses to the books, and that is as much fun as the Substack stuff and the podcasting stuff was. It's just more gratifying because of how much energy and how much of ourselves we have to put into those. Not to say we weren't putting everything we had into every episode of Supple Boys or Stegman and His Amazing Friends or whichever show it is, because we did, but there's just something about like, oh yeah, this feels so much more right, and this feels like where I want to be putting my time and energy.
This is the dream job, and we get to do it, and we get to do it together. It's high investment, highest reward.
No, and not to discourage anyone that like obviously we're here on an incredible comics related podcast right now, and so like not to like I want to make sure that I'm validating those forms as well, because they are very important and necessary for keeping us all connected and the conversation going in interesting ways. I think Ethan and I have just like found the lane that we prefer to be in.
Yeah. I mean, you're still expressing yourselves. It's a slightly different way, and it's a different medium. This is just the way you want to do it now. Like sometimes people change, sometimes people don't. Bizarrely, I'm like the one comic podcaster that has no interest in making comics. I have no idea why. It's just how I am.
Right. Right. No, I love it. Yeah.
I'm very happy that you found the path for yourselves. You guys are doing a great job, but that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Kill Your Darlings, your career, and everything else. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah, no, and your questions are amazing. I love that you dug so deep. It's like very flattering. So thank you so much, man. And for it to be your anniversary show, congrats, dude. Woo! Absolutely. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh my God.
10 years. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with co-writers Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan. You can find their work in Kill Your Darlings at Image Comics, as well as the upcoming Bring on the Bad Guys, Green Goblin at Marvel, Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone at IDW, and Blink and You'll Miss It at Boom Studios. As per usual, big thanks to Deanna Chapman for editing this week's episode. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify today, and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing it on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast, as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site Sketched at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by following it on Blue Sky and Instagram, or following me on Blue Sky or Instagram. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Raoul Allen, Omega Slice, John Walsh, Brandon Paul, Aaron Bussey, AC, Simon Birch, Austin, Scion, Megan Marsden, T.S. Luther, Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast, Scott Carpenter, Gus, M.K. Frygeist, Saunter, Brian, Chris Robinson, David Byrne, Milton Lawson, Benjamin Wilkins, Chris Hacker, John Neesmith, John Auerbach, Dustin Weaver, Brandon Heyman, Aiden Hammond, Faith Aaron Hicks, Ben Rowe, Cameron Brown, Jonathan Breen, Charlie Stickney, Tom Drennan, Jeremy Thomas Burke, Jared Schwab, Scott Dunn, Chip Mosher, Seth Pomeroy, James McEwen, Andrew Lehman, Christina Merkler, Scott Place, Travis Gibb, Darcy Van Polgees, Tom Evans, Reed Beeman, Kelly Sudaconic, Max Wood, Jeremy Lambert, Brian Neer Levy, Jason Hussa, Kieran Gillen, Jonathan Kent Uratam, Henry Johnson, Dennis Hoffman, Django Boren, James Tynan IV, Chris Langford, Jason Wood, Tom Peachy, Ben Domstead, Rom V, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Orrin, Klaus Vandeven, Subman Industries, Jack Mulqueen, Carl Kerschel, Robert Masella, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Canadian by Proxy, Bradley Rader, Carl Troy, Brandon Pills, Patrick Brower, Declan Shelby, Dan Garino, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, Liana Kangas, Nick Bennett, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, Robert Wilson IV, Andrew Carita, Stefan Holt, Philip Myra, Chris Pachalo, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Chris Rata, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Ryanwan, Vita Ayala, Akil, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, David Kelly, Jason Massey, Adam Bogart, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendrick, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Ching, Paul McMahon, Adam Heifel, Fiona Staples, Mark Abbott, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonacos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Wolfpack for letting me use their song Outro as the show's opening theme, and to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Panel's outro and ad music just for the show. Check out both their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.